Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Accelerate webinar series hosted by the Daniels College of Business Executive Education Division. I'm David Worley, Executive Director, and I'll be your host. Today's session will be about how to create a meaningful hybrid experience. And we're pleased to welcome back to the webinar Bo Storozuk. Bo, thanks for being with us.
So great to be back, David. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for those of you who are fans of the webinar, first of all, we really appreciate you showing up episode after episode, and we're hoping that this is really making a difference in your professional lives. For those of you who are new, just know that this is going to be a brief webinar. We go about 25 to 30 minutes, and everything we've done is aimed at trying to create relevant and actionable work for your seat. So hopefully at the end of this webinar, you come away with really good work and good points on how you can apply a meaningful hybrid experience in your particular organization. So Bo is one of our favorite faculty. He teaches in our Accelerated Leadership Experience. And the ALX program is really designed to upskill leaders who are early in their first department or divisional type engagement. And he just does a wonderful job there. So we asked him to come back and present yet again. Bo is a practitioner of leadership and development. He has worked with Jacobs for over a decade. And if you don't know about Jacobs, they're a comprehensive solutions firm. And in that role, he upskills folks. He helps leaders kind of take on early roles and begin to develop their own capacities. But he also does extensive work in the company in engaging sorts of meetings and kind of helping with developing the culture of communication and development. That's going to be what he talks about or what he draws on in this session today. Bo is a graduate, here, of the University of Denver International MBA program. He is a native Canadian who played hockey for most of his life and coached up until the time that he had children. And we're just so pleased to have him here. Bo, we look forward to your presentation, and I'm sure we're all going to learn a ton.
Thanks so much, David. All right, so today we get to talk about creating a meaningful hybrid experience. So what does that mean? Let's look at what's happened over the last even 3 to 4 years. The world continues to change at a rapid pace, maybe a more rapid pace than we have ever seen, and that pace just continues to increase. And that might be the only constant that we know. So we look at the themes over the last few years, digital transformation, automation, remote working. None of these by themselves are new, but the pandemic has accelerated them in a way that has really disrupted our world. And now we're seeing things like the Great Resignation, where people are leaving the workforce at an accelerated rate. And that's for a myriad of reasons. It could be that they don't have childcare anymore, or they're homeschooling their kids. It might be that opportunities look and feel a little bit different within the organization. It might even be that some organizations are forcing people to come back to the office, and that's not what they're looking for anymore. And there's a lot of burnout going on across industries. So why is this important? Draw on the principles of design thinking, right? At the heart of design thinking is empathy. Understanding your client or customer, or in this case, our employees, our stakeholders, our clients, to understand what they are going through, what they are feeling, what they are thinking, what they are understanding in the context of their world, so that we can develop experiences that are valuable for them and engaging. So it's critical to developing these key insights and being able to check our own assumptions by first understanding empathetically what our people are going through. So that's what we're going to focus on here today. As we look at how we work continues to change through place, tools, and technology, we're going to take a step back and look at the heart of the matter, which is the human experience. So we're going to start by looking at these 4 key areas to creating a meaningful experience, and we're going to break these down. So first, creating clarity, talking a little bit what we mean by that, how to effectively design an experience from a holistic point of view, creating and raising experiential awareness for people to understand what they're going through and therefore engage in it more effectively. And then also how to integrate technology into the experience so we're creating something that's memorable and valuable for people. So let's jump in. Creating clarity. So this quote from Bob Johansson has really been resonating with me around how leaders need to be able to create clarity, articulate that clarity, and align their people to that clarity in a really meaningful way. So what we're going to talk about with this is clarity around purpose, context, and outcomes. And why that's important, if you think about the pace that we are working at, it is so easy to jump into a meeting and a workshop, any aspect where we gather together in a company, and we're moving so fast. So what do? We jump in, we hit the ground running. We're making a lot of assumptions around people's understanding of why they're there, the context of the situation, and what we need to achieve in that time together. And that's where the mistake happens. When we make those assumptions and we're wrong on them, we're going to find too many people starting to disengage from that meeting, or they're not going to want to show up. And how you create these experiences for people start to shape your brand as a leader, as a team, as an influencer in the company, and it's really important to contributing to their overall employee experience at the company. So purpose, what do we mean by purpose? It's really, the most simplest answer is, why are we there? Not what are we doing, not how are we doing it, but why are we there? I love the example Priya Parker uses in her book, The Art of Gathering, to explain this. And a simple example of a birthday party. So she asks, why are you having a birthday party? And one might answer, to celebrate and eat cake. And that's a great reason to have a birthday party. But imagine if someone instead answered it this way, and they said, well, I'm going through a lot of transition in my life right now, and I want to surround myself with people who love and support me. That gives us a very different understanding of why we've been invited there, what to expect in terms of engagement, interaction, and what I can contribute to that. So let's turn it to a sense of a business example. Strategy. Why are we getting together? We need to refresh our strategy. Cool, great reason to bring people together to meet. However, what if we instead changed it to, well, there's a lot of change in current market shifts and trends. Our clients are starting to ask and make more demands around something like net zero solutions. So we need to come together to better understand where we are positioned and our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities to be able to capitalize on that. Again, very different intention and understanding of what's expected for me and how I'm going to engage in that scenario. So that's really getting to the heart of a deeper purpose. Context. The assumption here is that what do people need to understand to be able to engage in that content or that subject matter? And the assumption that we incorrectly make is that everyone knows the same information or they're all at the same place, emotionally, intellectually, right? So taking time to set up and clarify the context. So in the strategy situation, what market trends are we talking about? What specific demands has our client made? Not assuming everyone knows this information, but really spending the time to set that up and clarify so everyone's aligned. And then the third piece around defining shared success. First of all, giving people a larger vision of what this whole initiative is, right? So when we're meeting, again, whether it's in a weekly meeting, a 2-day workshop, whatever it might be, what are we trying to accomplish overall, and where are we on that journey so they know where to focus and how to engage, and they're not distracted by things they don't understand or by things that they want to address, but we're going to, just not yet. So providing that clarity is so critical, and all of this may seem so simple and straightforward and obvious, but that's probably why it often gets skipped. Because we assume it's so obvious that we don't spend the time to set it up, and we miss setting the foundation for that gathering to be as successful as possible. So the next piece on designing experiences, and how do we design that from a holistic standpoint? So we've been breaking this down and using a simple model of feel, know, do. How do we need our people to feel going through and coming out of this? What do we need them to know in terms of information, subject matter, frameworks, methodologies, whatever it may be? And what do we need them to be able to do after this to continue to carry actions forward and achieve the desired results? Now, when you look at this from a holistic standpoint, we cannot ignore the human element. Understanding where people are at on their journey, going back to the design thinking principles of empathy at the heart of the matter. If we understand where people are and how they are currently feeling, taking into account interpersonal dynamics, organizational politics, other things that may be affecting how they're engaging, we can then better craft the experience around how we create that feeling in order to get them engaged, to understand what's going on, and then go carry out those actions. The knowledge piece, again, around information, structures, frameworks that they may need to understand to go apply, and the do is around the clear actions. So when you start to build an agenda around this, if we need people to feel a certain way, like we want to recharge their energy, you might start putting in more breaks. You might think about how you design activities more differently to cater to different types of personal styles. So just an example of how this feel, know, do model actually starts to shape and change the way we create our agendas for these gatherings. Experiential awareness. This is always one of my favorite comics. Fish swimming by, how's the water? And the other fish, what the hell is water? Right? This happens all the time when you think about we are going through life and experiencing life, and there's all this stuff going around individually, right? What's going on for me personally, emotionally, what's going on for others interpersonally, emotionally, intellectually, and then politically as groups, as we get groups together. And if you don't know that it's around you, it's affecting things in ways that you might not want. But as soon as you're aware of it, you can't help but see and feel it everywhere around you. So how we've been playing with this is we've actually taken a model on adult learning and adult development. And this was originally created by Nick Petrie, and Ali Boyd, who I get the pleasure of working with on the ALX program, has adapted this slightly, and I've had a really great time applying this to the experiential aspect of how we gather. So if we look at this first piece of heat experiences, challenge, disruption, disorientation, pushing people out of their comfort zone. It happens all the time at work. And if we're not ready, or if we're not aware and I guess prepared to how to deal with that, it can have a negative effect. But if instead we intentionally craft it and we start asking ourselves, well, where is this happening and how can we leverage it? Or how can we even design an experience that push people into discomfort in order to get them more engaged and to grow? Then we're talking about leveraging what's already happening in a more impactful way. Colliding perspectives. How can we create and learn from other perspectives? And so where are we bringing the right people in the room to provide enough diversity of thought that is going to drive and create better solutions, better problem solving, better thinking and dialogue altogether? So how do we design for creating better colliding perspectives? Elevated sense making. So often in these meetings, in these workshops, we try and hit so much at a very little level, at a superficial level, where it might actually benefit us to hit a couple things a lot more deeper. So with elevated sense making, where are we providing opportunities for coaching, for dialogue, to engage in some exploration of what's going on and help integrate and make sense of it a little bit more? And if you, again, bring people along on this journey to say, hey, we're having a heat experience. Hey, look at all these great colliding perspectives. Hey, we're going to give you time to make sense of this a little bit more now. Using this model as a sense-making tool has actually really helped people engage and have more meaningful experiences as we're designing these meetings, workshops, and gatherings. And then the last piece around energy capacity. So there's a lot of research around burnout and stress and what's causing it. And stress is not a bad thing. We actually need stress to elevate performance. But it's when we have sustained marathon of stress with no break that causes burnout. So how are we designing experiences that is more about sprint, recover, and sprint, recover? And that recovery might look like a break, or that recovery might just be how we are intentionally designing different types of activities. If you think about the spectrum on introversion versus extroversion, introverts recharge more with personal time by themselves. Extroverts tend to charge more by being around people. So are you providing activities that allow for individual reflection? Are you providing activities that allow for group collaboration and interaction? And if it's only one or the other, you're missing the boat with part of your audience. So using this framework, tying it to the feel, know, do in terms of how do I start to craft my experience and raise awareness of what's happening, so when people go through it, they're not in this, what the hell is water? They're like, oh, this is the water, and I know what to do with it now. And so the last piece of this is around integrated technology. And this is where we get into a lot of the cool innovations around the tools that have been developed in that enhance our ability to collaborate virtually. Now with this, so the first aspect is think of everything through the lens of the experience. A tool is just a tool. And if we grab a hammer where we need a screwdriver, it's not going to do the job. Right? So how do we choose the right tools to create the experience that we want to create, thinking it through the lens of the experience? So in this example that I'll share with you, in this little case study, we use largely Microsoft Teams and Mural and some AV technology in the room to make this happen. So what we did is set the ground rules around chat and video. Going back to that introversion and extroversion, when you have the ability to get more inclusive engagement because you're allowing features like a chat function or sticky notes in Mural for people to contribute in other ways than just talking, you're going to get more from people overall. But you need to set the ground rules around it. So are you monitoring the chat? Are you encouraging people to actually use that and then leverage that to get more input from people? So all of this integrated technology is about leveling the playing field. So whether you're in person or virtual, you're creating a more equal experience for people to be able to engage. The next piece around using real-time virtual collaboration tools. So in this case, we used Mural. You might use like Google Docs. Anything that you can collaborate real-time on together creates a level playing field. And in this example here, we created a whole board that mapped out this 4-day experience. So we had the agenda, we had who was coming, we had the framework for the overall workshop, we had logistics, everything that you need to know in terms of key resources, and then everything else on the Mural was, this is where we're going to play. So if we were presenting materials, we put it on there for people to reference. If we were working on an activity together, we put the framework on there, so we weren't just doing it in person so the people online couldn't collaborate. We put it on there so we were all working in the same space. And what I love about this is traditionally in these types of settings, what do? We whiteboard, we flip chart, then we take a bunch of pictures of everything, then we need to go transcribe it. Doing it digitally here not only leveled the playing field in real time, but it created a digital artifact for us to be able to go back and reference and understand what is it that we accomplished in these 3 days, and we can continuously come back to this for future action versus the flip charts and the whiteboards that got erased or got thrown out. So leveraging digital tools for this actually has a myriad of advantages. With that, there's going to be a time when you start getting some people in the room, the energy changes. We love being back together, and it's very easy for the people online to feel excluded. So to help level that out is have someone scribe. If someone does go to a whiteboard because they want to jam out on something, make sure someone is scribing that onto this digital platform so the people online are seeing that as well. The other thing we did with that is leverage room cams. So at all times we had one camera that showed the entire room so people got a sense of the environment. And if possible, something mobile, so if we did shift to a whiteboard jam session, we could move that over and people could still see what's going on. So again, leveling the playing field, it takes a little bit more intention and attention to detail, but it's worth it in creating that experience for people both in person and virtually. A couple other things just to hit on is speaking to all participants. So while people were in person, we don't want them to be locked to their laptop, but if they're going to be speaking, hey, turn on your camera so the people online can see you, or speak into the room cam. Do not forget the people that aren't there in person, and how can you engage with them just by simply utilizing those resources that are set up. And the last piece on multiple screens, you can see in the image here, one screen was the virtual participants, so we remembered who was there virtually and not with us in the room, and the other piece was the content. So using the virtual collaboration tools, we had a room share, but people could also engage individually on their own laptops. So we're really integrating all the technology that we had available to create this experience. And in this instance, there wasn't actually a room cam. There wasn't a room mic. So we plugged in a separate Logitech camera over here. Someone ended up traveling with a speaker that had a mic built in that we were able to hook up to the system. So in some instances, you're at a company or a room that has everything built in and it's golden. But in some instances, you have to get creative and have a little fun with it as well. It's not perfect everywhere. So knowing what you have in terms of IT infrastructure to support that is really important. And then the last piece on this is over-communicate what's happening. If we're changing the schedule, if we're taking breaks, if we're moving into a breakout, it's so easy to see what's going on in the room. And when people lose some of that virtually, we have to not narrate everything that's going on, but over-communicate so those people don't miss out on anything and aren't lost along the way. So tying this all together to create this meaningful experience, we're talking about creating clarity around purpose, context, and outcomes. How to develop an experience through this holistic view of feel, know, do. How do we create and raise more experiential awareness around heat experiences, colliding perspectives, elevated sense making, and sustaining that energy capacity? And then lastly, how do we integrate the right tools and technologies that support the kind of experience that we want to create? So that's it for my time today. I want to thank you all for joining. I'm going to open it up to some Q&A and let's have a conversation if you're curious about any of this. And David, I'll turn it over back to you.
Bo, thank you so much. That was really, really interesting stuff in there. I think the audience would have gotten a lot out of it. My very first question has to do with the difference in assessing people. Mm-hmm. And by assessment, I don't mean like in a formal HR sense. I mean like, where are people at? So you're a very warm, socially and relationally intelligent human. So when you're in the room with you, like I can almost feel you kind of align with every single person. Mm-hmm. And kind of empathetically know where they're at. But how do you do that when you have people that are online?
I mean, so for so much of this from a planning perspective, it comes down to the simple point of ask. Have a conversation, right? So depending on the complexity or maybe sensitivity of why we're getting together, sometimes we're having individual one-on-one interviews with participants ahead of time to understand where they're at. Sometimes we're getting the leader perspective. The other thing that I found has been really valuable is to engage people in the process as much as you can early on. Mm-hmm. We don't want to go to a design by committee because then nothing will ever get done. But if you come up with a draft agenda, if you're communicating the purpose, the outcomes ahead of time, because from an experience standpoint, that doesn't start the moment the meeting begins. The experience starts at the first communication, the first point of contact, the first time someone hears a whim of what might be happening here. Mm-hmm. So when we start to think more holistically about their experience and how we can engage them earlier on in the process and give them a chance to weigh in, I think that's where a lot of that understanding comes out.
That was something that we were talking about before the webinar that I found really, really profound, that I think very few people in organizations think much about, and that is the whole experience of an employee or team member. I mean, lots of people get a lot of personal value from their work experiences. So in addition to what you presented, how would you consult with key leaders on how to think about the whole picture and the wellness of their team members kind of across the board, beyond just the hybrid meeting?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because you're even seeing in companies today, they now have whole employee experience departments for that very reason. So I think from a leadership standpoint, it's really important, and it may seem elementary, but we talk about it all the time, is how well do you know your people? And we encourage people to bring their whole selves to work. It's no longer the separation of personal life and professional life, right? And so the more that we get to understand our people in terms of what makes them tick, what are their career aspirations, where are they intellectually, emotionally, what's going on personally in their lives, the more that you can understand that. And it's not just about being touchy-feely. It's about understanding these relational aspects very strategically to get the most out of your people, to help elevate them to where they want to go, so they are putting in that discretionary effort, they're engaged, they're having fun. And then we're hopefully reducing the amount of what we're seeing across this great resignation. Thank
you for your comments and for the broader vision. COVID accelerated lots of things in society, the hybrid world was coming. So this is a timely this is a timely topic, not just because of COVID, but because we live in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, folks at home or at your office, thanks for being with us. We're so grateful for your ongoing support of these webinars. Please check out the Executive Education website for more information about our programs. You can do so by clicking on daniels.du.edu. There you will find a recording of this webinar and the dozens of other episodes we have produced over the past 2 seasons. In the comment chat, I saw where people were wondering about slides. We will follow up with these slides and a recording so that you're able to see them better if they weren't clear on your screen. As I mentioned earlier, we are thrilled to put Bo to work in our Accelerated Leadership Experience. The next edition of this kicks off in early April 2022. Our last ALX program was completely sold out, so don't hesitate to register immediately if you know you want to attend. The program is focused on accelerating leaders who are new to department or divisional leadership. It is an experiential program held in the mountains for 3 days, then online for 4 half days. Participants have uniformly found it transformative for their professional journey. And if you want more detail, info, if you want to see agendas, or if you want to talk through what you're going to get from this program, please contact us via the Executive Education website. We're happy to field your questions. This is our last webinar of the 2021 calendar year, but we will be back in January with new episodes. The best way to stay on top of that is to follow us on LinkedIn. You'll always have our most recent information, and if you haven't signed up for the Executive Education newsletter, you will find details there as well. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We hope you gain new insight that will accelerate your impact in your community, your organization, and the world. From the University of Denver, Daniels College of Business Executive Education Division, we look forward to seeing you again at another Accelerate webinar. Thanks for being with us.